Alright guys, we figured out the main post-process settings and how to support Lumen because it uses screen space reflections and we need just to introduce some more light into that. Now let's talk about the lights and what are the settings which we can change in them to define our lighting for the car. So for example, um, this is what we get with the reflections, with the lights and so on. But what if we would like just to place our car in the scene and add in rectangle light, but we don't want the rectangle lights to, um, for example, cast the reflection or affect any other part of the scene and maybe affect the fog a little bit more to introduce some more volumetric lights. Let's change the size of this particular rectangle light. Let's get it a little bit bigger and wider. Source width and source height. Okay, so now as you can see, the bigger it gets, the bigger its reflection, and it works just like the same any softbox or rectangle light in real life. So the bigger the size of this light, the softer it will be and it will completely dissolve and we will not have like really big reflection of that one and it will not be that bright. So the bigger source light is, the softer it will look and it will cast the less reflection in that one. But let's delete this one. But if we would like to completely eradicate the reflection which it produces, so for example here, let's make it again really thin, and if we would like to eradicate this reflection and just use this light as just like, you know, to bump up or like make the car pop out more, we can reduce the specular scale. So basically it works as the polarizing filter, eradicating all of the reflections which this light casts. It's not physically accurate and not real, but we don't care about that. We can just like go and turn it off. And if we turn on and turn off this light, you'll see that we can see the car better. It is just like more well lit. We can move it a little bit and we will just bump up our car in the scene without creating the reflections. So making just a softer shadow and introducing a little bit more of light into our details so we can see more of the details. Obviously we can like increase this specular scale just to give it more reflection, but it is just like up to you if you'd like to have, you know, this line of the light. In that case, just like see, making like that, so we have this line on the body shape and it will draw this line. But if you would like to get rid of that, you can just reduce the specular scale to 0. And you can do that with any source of light. If it is like directional light, rectangle light, or any like light from here, spotlight or point light, everything can have this setting enabled. So this is how you can deal with that, just by bumping up our car in the scene. What also we can do, if we change our exponential height fog, when the exponential height fog is not set up for volumetric, it will be just like basically working as the distance fog. It will not be introducing any fog like here, even we increase the density, it's like that, but it's not volumetric and we want that to be volumetric. So let's go to volumetric and enable volumetric fog, and you will see that inside like interiors and with the lights which we have here, it will cast this like interesting thing. And if it's not volumetric, it just like, you know, fills the scene with that, like with the distance fog. But now when it is volumetric, you have from each source of light, you have this really, you know, halo which is happening nearby the lights, giving it like slight blur and giving it more atmosphere. We also can increase the amount of fog, like fog density, and it really gives the atmosphere. It fills it. And for each light, you have separate setting for scattering, for indirect light scattering. So if you use like the volumetric scattering intensity and increase this one, and let's increase brightness of this particular fog, light, you'll see that it creates like more of the fog feeling. It affects our fog much more. So scattering also can be set up for each light separately, and it will affect the fog really more or less. So if you have a lot of fog in the scene, and for example, what I did in the shot for Hyundai Genesis, I used two lights actually. One of the lights were having this in scattering. So if I create, for example, light, spotlight right here, and for example, I take this spotlight and attach to our rig, and I will just put it here like that, right? So I'll explain it right now so you'll get it what I'm getting. So for this one, I wanted only, let's duplicate this one too, and it will be two connected. So I have like two lights which cast the light on the ground. It looks really nice, really good. So we have this, headlight feeling from the lights. But the thing is, like, it's not placed in the proper place, right? So it should be starting here, but I want this light not affecting our fog, even though we have our fog really strong in the scene. So for this one, I set the scattering intensity by default at 0.25, but you can force it to be just 0, so it will not affect the fog at all. Because I want these lights, which are like printed on the ground, do not affect the fog because they are a little bit further away than our headlights, just for the proper positioning. And then I just duplicate all of this too by holding Alt on the keyboard again, move it to the proper position of the headlamps, like that, for example, here, right? It's already better. And for this, I would like probably to change. I know it's not like precise position. Let's fix it a little bit. Yes, something like that. And we need to change for the spotlight. There is a thing that you can do for light source. So there is source radius. By default, it's like a point, but we would like to make the source radius a little bit bigger. So approximately maybe 3 or like 10. Yay, 10 is big. It's 5. And also source radius for this one, also 5. And make the cone, so outer cone angle, a little bit sharper, then it will be, affecting the ground. And for this one, with 2, reduce it to 16, something like that. And for this one, we can change scattering intensity, like make it bigger. Let's put it even more and increase our intensity so we can actually see this light, right? So something like that. And here we will do the same. So we will increase the intensity. What was there? Like 82. Let's put 82 here too. And the scattering intensity, like let's increase it to maximum just for the sake of the tutorial. So see, now we have those lights. Let's even like adjust their position. We just need it like that probably. Yes, and the second one too here. Yes, looks much better. So it was the same for the Hyundai, which I did. I didn't, because the thing is, we still wanted this sort of shape on the ground for our headlights, but the headlights on the on our Hyundai model were like just strip lines, and we used rectangle lights for our lights in the Hyundai. And for that one, you can use also rectangle light, for example, and just do the same. But for now, just like for the sake of the tutorial, we can put this one. So yeah, if it's like bright enough, you can put it. Maybe we can also increase. So the purpose of that was to have the proper shape for these emissive lights and having this properly like emitting the light in the fog, but having this sort of shape on the ground, so you can separate this one. So these ones are supporting shape on the ground, and these ones are affecting only the fog, right? So we have this, light trail looking cool and so on. Also, you can make this light distance, so attention radius, it will not be going too far because we don't need it so far. And for each light, you can also define channels which will be affected. So if you look for channel, by default, it's using the channel 0. Every mesh in every scene uses the channel 0. If I disable channel 0, you will not see that one, right? So for that one, you can change the channel, for example, of this shape. If I pick like the floor and set it to channel 1, 2, right, for example, and I can exclude this one from the channel 0 and it will still affect the ground. The same you can do with the car and with a separate model. So if I check this one and put the channel 0 only, or channel 1 only, it will not affect our ground. So if I put it here, let's disable the channel 1 for the floor. So see, that only affects channel 1. And if I want to affect it only the car, not affecting or not like affecting our environment, I can also check the channel for each component in the in this rig. So if I pick channel 1, right, you see that's instantly starts affecting something, right? So the same goes for this one. You can also like pick channel 1 but disable channel 0, so it will not be affecting the floor here, but it will be still affecting the scene and the fog, right? And we will not have the double light on the ground. So if I enable, you can see it's like adding here a little bit of light, but we don't want it, so we just disable channel 0, and our second lights, which are coming from our headlamps, will not be affecting the ground, but they will cast fog light, and the first pair of lamps will be projecting some light on the ground. The only thing is like you really need to align that. I just don't want to waste your time here for that one. And also for the back, we can add, for example, the rectangle light, move it here like this. Make it a strip, just like thin line. So surf width, we can make it a little bit wider, but a little bit thinner. Make it like 3 approximately on the back. And make the color red. So yeah, that will affect light, because as I said, it's always better to support emissive materials with actual light source. Let's attach it also to our rig. So it is always better to support emissive material with the light source, because in that case, you have like more dynamic lighting. It works better. Even in path tracing, it will give you less noise. Let's disable the editor update, as I mentioned before. It will give you less noise, because you see there is a lot of fog and there is a lot of noise happening, but with Lumen it looks still good, and with a lot of fog, and just really interesting picture. And as I said before, if you create the cinema camera actor, it also has the see how much better it's looking, right? And if you have Cinema Camera Actor, in the Cinema Camera Actor, you also have this post-processing volume settings here in the post-process. And every setting of the post-process can be overridden here. But we are here just like to set up the focus and see how it looks like. Yeah, I understand this one is not proper. We can probably also increase the source radius, like for making it bigger. So it will be looking a little bit more wide. Just adjust it to your will. I just don't want to waste your time for this one. You can play around as much as you like, or you can even make this one. See actually how good that looks with the blur and with blurred bokeh. So we did really good job with the setting up the post-processing volume settings. Really looks cool, even in Lumen without no ray tracing. So yeah, just feel free to play around with all of those sources. To be honest, like regarding the point light, I really rarely use that. Just most of the time, just to adjust atmosphere and maybe introduce some color into the scene like that. So to make it a little bit orange teal or bluish colder, something like that. I rarely use that most of the time because the nature of my work is just like lighting the car. It's mostly spotlights and rectangle lights to light the car. And with this environment, with our settings, as I mentioned, I'm using physical camera exposure. So if I change the aperture and make it 1.2, I will have the brighter. And here I would need to adjust exposure to override the settings with the manual exposure. Here like that, manual exposure, and set it something to 5 or 6 because I've changed the aperture f-stop. So maybe even 6.5. Yeah. So look, that looks really cool in Lumen, and when it drives, when you have all components attached, they will be, working together with the car, and you'll be able, just let me enable the editor update back. So, and when the car will drive, you will have this, right, auto pitch also. It's better for simulation. Auto pitch 0. So, and when the car drives, you will see it's like all working, everything is emitting light, and you have proper representation of the lights. So, looks really nice. We will talk more about light in this scene. This is just like the basic overview of the light components, which you can use in Unreal, and how to set it up, how to exclude channels, how to make it affect volumetric lights, and how to remove the specular and reflections of the light sources which you put in the scene from your car if you don't like how those reflections are looking. So for the light components, this is it.